What's going on, everybody? This is the feed to Embiid. I got my guy Brock Landis here, who is fresh off of a nice lift, a nice afternoon lift. Brock, how are we today? How'd the lift go?
I'm doing well. The lift went well, too. So at my university, what you got to do is place a reservation a day or two in advance for a specific section in the gym for a 45-minute lift. Normally, I wouldn't be doing that, but I lost a little bit of weight during the quarantine, so got to make up for it somehow.
That's good stuff right there. So what'd you lift? What'd you do?
Today I trained shoulders. I'm doing one specific muscle each day.
Okay, there you go. I've been playing some MLB The Show today. I've been I've been sleeping a little late. Got doing a little writing. The whole thing I got work to catch up on. There we go. Now we do have some stuff to get into here. We're gonna have a Sixers update. We're gonna bring on the Panda Line's very own Jason Blevins, our Sixers insider, if you will, to discuss some of the moves that are going to be coming soon. And hoodie _Simo, we will answer that question when Jason comes on. He's running a little late now. So we're going to go on to the Toronto versus Boston series. And Game 7 last night. And, I thought it was a really kind of odd series because, first two games you think Boston's running away with it. In Game 3, they basically had nailed down until Toronto hits the game winner. And then, it's tied 2-2. Boston's up 3-2. Then it's 3. I felt like the series, the Celtics played better overall than the it was like better overall than maybe the series would have indicated. Like I thought Boston, the way that they played, should have had it done in like 5 or 6, and the fact that it went 7 and it was a close 7. I was kind of shocked by, but I thought that Toronto, one thing that they could have done better this series was, I thought Nick Nurse defensively went way too much with, box and one type defensive coverages and like triangle and twos. I thought pretty soon, Stan Van Gundy is going to bust out like a rhombus and one because you're just calling these different shapes out and these different defensive alignments. I thought they went too much zone in the series, and I thought they had the versatility to switch a little better than they did. But it was really, Boston put it in the hands of the guy who was basically the and one guy, and they went to work and isolated them to death, I thought, in the series.
Yeah, and the thing with Boston, which I alluded to prior to the series, is their switchability. Offensively and defensively, they have answers everywhere. If you're running a two-man game, they can switch defenders. There's 3 or 4 guys in their lineup that can defend 1 through 5. And offensively, the same. They can attack any position, and they were also without Gordon Hayward. So offensively, they didn't have everything. And throughout the first couple of games, the Toronto starters outscored Boston starters. And that's why I anticipated Toronto would ultimately win this series. I figured the first 2 games were not necessarily a fluke, but you have a really bad Pascal game. Then you have a game that comes down to the officials, and then you have a buzzer beater. So I anticipate Toronto ultimately wins this series, but what I didn't account for is how versatile Boston is. Now, we could get into whether or not Nick Nurse got outcoached, and I would use outcoached loosely. I know, Austin, you probably would say Nick Nurse did get outcoached. But for me, I'm going to be careful with my terminology. And I say that because Pascal Siakam really disappointed in this series. So you take a guy that scores about 23 points a game during the regular season. On about 19 shots a game, he's shooting 45%. And 35.9% on 6.1 threes. So that's very productive offensively. Now, in this series, he's relegated to just 14.9 points per game, so a big drop-off offensively there. His usage plummets from 27.8 to 21%, so he's not as involved as he was in the regular season.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets pretty ugly. While he shot 51.9% from the post, you can't win a series there. So he shot 29.1% on jump shots, which is atrocious. He shot 12.5% on almost 5 threes a game. I believe that's the lowest 3-point percentage registered of a qualifying player I believe it was over 600 qualified players in the shot clock era. So he shot horribly from beyond the arc. He was 4 of 32 there. He only made 4 threes, and Rajon Rondo made 3 more in 3 less games. So that's a testament to how bad Skal was from beyond the arc. Pulling up 2 of 15 from the field. He missed every single pull-up 3, only 25% on catch-and-shoot threes, and he was a combined 4 of 24 against Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart. So having considered all of that, I think because you lose your number one option on offense, I'm not going to blame that on Nick Nurse. I'm not. And Kyle Lowry stepped up. Fred VanVleet had a fantastic series. The dude was second most in assist points created, second in most 3 points made in the playoffs, almost 15 more points per game, or minutes per game rather than last year's playoff series. He shot 17.3 shots, and he shot 40% on them. That was better than he shot in last year's playoff series on far less shooting. And he shot 10 threes a game on 40% shooting there. Top 5 in the league in deflections and steals in the playoffs. So Fred VanVleet, an absolute dog, undrafted, had a fantastic series. Kyle Lowry, he had a great series as well. But because Pascal Siakam was such an not a liability, but he didn't even show up offensively, it's just going to be tough for Toronto to really combat this Boston team when they've got guys that are just firing away off the wings and guards that can just attack downhill.
Yeah, and I thought like one thing that Nick Nurse kind of was not great with this series was, number one, like he didn't empower Marc Gasol to be like a better offensive player at all in the series. Like a lot of it was Gasol lost confidence in his ability to score, or like he just wasn't, like he wasn't himself in this series. And then instead of like trying to incorporate him more, and try to like get him like you run cross screens around the baseline, like little flex plays to get him open looks around the rim just to see the ball go through the hoop. They didn't do any of that. And then it was just a high post or like high passer out of the post with like hard screens for VanVleet and Lowry cutting around. And it was that to the point where it was like you really have 4 offensive players who are a threat, and then Gasol, and he wasn't even looking at the rim. And then it got that bad. So that was one area. I thought one thing that he did that was also poor was he initiated he initiated Siakam way too far, like above the break. Siakam, from what I've observed, is better when you're giving him like a look on the wing, and it's like a bigger defender, or it's like something that's like a little bit below the 3-point line, but it's not like he's just trying to like create off the dribble outside going in. And as we saw in this series, his handle's too loose. He was turning the ball over a lot. If guys like caught him, on a drive, it was tough, and he was struggling there. And as a result, he just had a terrible, terrible series. Turnover took him out of rhythm. Now we do have Jason Blevins joining us, our Sixers insider. Jason, can you hear us?
Guess not.
Jason cannot hear us. Okay.
We'll run that back.
I'll run that back. Okay. So, what I saw with that was like Siakam couldn't get it in a rhythm, and then every time it was like either a miss and like a miss that was way off, or with a turnover, and he just couldn't get anything going at all. And I thought they took him out of the series pretty well, Boston. And so I felt like they initiated Siakam way too high in the offense. Like it was above the arc when he's not this isolation guy that can naturally score, from the perimeter. He's a guy who is more of like a off-ball movement, catch and shoot from 3, but he's not going to like dribble and hit step back threes like Tatum can hit and sidestep things.
Exactly. I was going to say the thing with Siakam is that in the half court, he's kind of a one-dimensional player in that he has a jump shot, but he doesn't necessarily have a go-to move. So he can operate in the post well, but against a team like Boston, with so many guys that can defend 1 through 5 and offensively guys that can score at will 1 through 4, if Pascal Siakam doesn't show up and add that 3-point shooting, it's just not enough. You can't afford to trade 2s for 3s every single possession. So VanVleet and Lowry tried their best to carry that load, but Siakam offensively, I agree with you, Austin, was game planned for and taken out of the series, but also defensively, he didn't have a good series. There's only one game you can look to in this entire series where Pascal Siakam did okay. And even at that, he was 2 of 11 from 3. Defensively, Jason Tatum shot almost 40% versus Siakam, and Marcus Smart made over half of his shots. So considering both of them did that, and they both made 50% of their 50% or more of their threes against Siakam, it just wasn't a great series. It's one for him to forget, but one he'll definitely grow from. And I see Jason is back on cam. So
speaking of Jasons, we have our Jason. We have Jason Blevins of the Painted Lines and 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, Jason, how's your connection? How's your connection? Better than it was? Okay. I see you're in the passenger seat.
I am in the passenger seat.
Very good.
So here's the wife is driving.
There we go. Very good.
Her car.
Very good.
So I think Siakam is a huge disappointment, and Toronto should definitely trade him for Al Horford. I think that seems right.
I like it. Sounds good to me. So, Jason, we
I mean, huge disappointment, right?
It was a terrible series.
He can't carry a franchise.
Terrible series for Siakam. It was horrible. It was horrible. Yeah, so
maybe Tobias Harris should take over.
Listen, Tobias Harris, 100% Tobias Harris under Nick Nurse, going to be a multi-time All-Star. We all know it's coming. With that player development, no doubt about it in my mind. So, Jason, this week, Keith Pompey comes out with, it looks like one of Ned Cohen and Alex Rucker is going to be heading out soon. What's the vibe that you get in terms of like where the front office moves are going to be, and then like whether it's a bottom up or top down approach with the coach first, followed by front office, or how do you think that's going to play out? What does the timeline look like for that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I don't totally have the answer. I think that I don't know that they've completely abandoned the analytics approach. I think there are certain things that, from an analytics standpoint, that the entire league has learned. And the math is all there. It's technology, but Texas Hold'em, the math is the math. And then once everyone at the table knows the math, it then becomes again about learning the game and learning to play against the players. And I think we've gotten to that point in the NBA where the shots are clear, everyone knows it, the coaches know it, the front office knows it. There are no secrets anymore. So the utility of an Alex Rucker, for example, is diminished. And there are no secrets anymore. There are no more secret algorithms in a spreadsheet. And as much as I like math, there's a point where everyone knows the math and it becomes a human game again. And I think we're reaching that point in the sport where it becomes again about the core. Leonard's just forgetting them. Because of that, Elton is looking for people that are prepared for that next stage.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think they're trying and scanning the landscape for like basketball oriented people. Do you think like there's like a world where, assuming Ty Lue is the next head coach of the team, which I think that's sort of the indication that we get at this point, do you think Ty Lue would bring in like an assistant coaching staff that is more like well-known coaching names or former players that have recently retired from the game?
Well, I think what you need is people that have the credibility to kick your two stars in the ass and have those stars listen and not retract. So you need people that those guys grown up respecting and that can say things that are really critical and really harsh in a way that doesn't make them retreat into their camp. So when you say like Chauncey Billups, right? That's a name that's brought up a lot. Um, you look at when he was really a credible person in the league with some influence. Um, does a Ben Simmons who grew up with this game really respect the call out that he gets? And then Joel Embiid, who's really only had this game in his life for about 10 years or so,
Yep.
does he listen and can he take that criticism? Um, I think that's the key. And look, these guys are no longer those young, huge upside prospects. These are guys that are young men that need to start hearing the critical truths. Like, look, I'm not your babysitter. Brett Brown is gone. It's no longer kindergarten. It's time to tell you that you need to get your shit together. And who are those guys that can say that in a way where they don't turn off a young superstar who's got $100 million contract? So a Chauncey Billups, a Ty Lue, those guys are the kind of guys that can say those things. I think, in my opinion, more so than a maybe a coach like a Dave Yorger or a Billy Donovan, even who have just been coaches. So I think there's real value to an ex-player who can talk shit with the best of them and really call these guys out.
Yeah. So going off of that and seeing as though like Ben Simmons is a clutch guy, Ty Lue's a clutch guy, it seems as though the Sixers are kind of morphing into the Cleveland Cavaliers, but with cheesesteaks. And so let me ask you this: do you think there's like a chance that like a Richard Jefferson or or someone like a Channing Frye could be on the market or could be in the equation?
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you bring both of those guys in? You look at Jefferson and some of the breakdowns that I've seen from him over the last few weeks. You know, he gets the role of a modern big man. I think he does. I think he understands how a big man should move within a possession off the ball. And then a Channing Frye, obviously you have a highly accomplished intellectual stretch five. So why wouldn't you bring guys like that in versus like, some of the guys that Ty Lue has had as assistants in the past? Like, bring those guys that were 34, 36 as players when Ty Lue was winning championships. Those are exactly the kind of guys I think you should have on the bench.
For sure. Talking with Jason Blevins of Painted Lines and of 97.3 ESPN. So, Jason, one last question about the coaching staff. So, Billy Donovan becomes available this week, and obviously all the fans are like, "Oh, this guy from Oklahoma City, they kind of overachieved this year, even though they were a very well built team." I thought, as the season went along. Do you think that there's like a conversation still about who the coach is going to be, or do you think it's just sort of like you're waiting for like the final events to take place, like certain teams getting eliminated before they announce the decision's already been made?
Is it just between the three of us, right?
Sure.
Just between the three of us. I mean, I think this decision was made 5 months ago.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay.
So Billy Donovan lost his job. Billy Donovan had James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant on the team. I think he had them all on the same team. That wasn't a Scott Brooks team. Maybe it was.
I think Harden was with Scott Brooks, and then I think
over in 2015. I think.
Okay,
but Donovan still had KD and Russ.
All right. So let's say that he had those two guys, and he doesn't have a championship. And then let's look at Scott Brooks and what has he done since he moved on from that trio. Do you want Scott Brooks 2.0? in Philadelphia. Well, what has Billy Donovan really done aside from win a national championship with Al Horford in Florida? So Billy Donovan to me connects to an Al Horford connection, which means what exactly are you doing? Are you changing anything? Or are you just saying, yeah, the Al Horford thing just didn't work out because Brett Brown's an idiot? No. To me, no. That doesn't make sense. So, I mean, I think what you really have to do is you have to step back and you say, okay, you've got two superstars that haven't accomplished what you want them to accomplish. Who is the guy that can deal with superstars and really take them to that next level? And what are the chances that Billy Donovan is that guy versus Ty Lue? I mean, I wouldn't take that chance. I would take the Ty Lue. And I think that the organization has felt that way since February.
Wow.
I mean,
I don't know.
Just my take.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but Sports Illustrated just published something 3 days ago or 4 days ago. And Howard Beck from Bleacher Report indicated that Mike D'Antoni, barring getting fired, would not plan to, but would hope to end up back in Philadelphia as a former assistant. So what do you guys think the likelihood is that Mike D'Antoni is a candidate for head coach for Philadelphia?
I think the fans would hate that.
I don't know what that would look like after watching Houston's experiment.
So here's I was in the building, Wells Fargo Center, the night Jerry Colangelo was announced.
Mm-hmm.
They played the San Antonio Spurs, and one of his first moves was to bring a couple of things he did. He brought in Ish Smith, and he brought in Mike D'Antoni, and
franchise-changing moves right there.
well, I mean, D'Antoni has a philosophy, you know, 7
Running
seconds
gun.
or less.
Yeah.
How does that fit with Joel Embiid?
Mm-hmm.
So now, are you moving on from Joel Embiid?
Yeah, you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
But
plus, you don't have the 3-point shooting. Like if the Sixers came out and shot 63s per game, I think fans would go into a frenzy. I mean, they're not making this team makes 17 of 60 from three would be a.
Hold on, this team, these fans couldn't deal with Robert Covington shooting 9 threes in a game where he made 3 of them. They couldn't deal with that on a single game basis.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. I don't see how that works. So I think we're all in agreement, Jason. You think it's gonna be Ty Lue. I think we all think it's gonna be Ty Lue.
I think it's gonna be Ty Lue. I'll be shocked if it's anything other than Ty Lue. I mean, I'm not saying I've been fed official, but I'm saying that 10 days ago when
John Johnson.
John Johnson, our friend, a great guy, great kids.
Yeah.
Like, this is a professional in our industry. Said it was all but a done deal. And
then 2 seconds later revoked it. It's obviously a PR thing that they're like, hey, like, shut up. Yeah.
But come on. I've been hearing Ty Lue on background since, gosh, I can't even tell you, January, February.
Right.
Yeah,
you know, and I will tell you that it's I don't even think it's a secret that Brett Brown was almost fired after the Toronto series in 2019. So I don't think that I'm breaking news by saying it almost happened last summer. And we're 15, 16 months after that. So why are we even surprised?
Right.
Come on.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like, let me ask you this. So, like, if let's say they introduce Ty Lue last summer and he's the new head coach, do you think he can convince Ben to, like, live with the off-ball role and then maybe you keep around Jimmy Butler?
Oh, boy.
No, I don't think so, because I think there really are cliques in the NBA. I think there are management cliques, media cliques.
Mm-hmm.
I think the clutch group is very powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't think that works. I don't think you make that work. And look, Jimmy as the alpha of the Miami Heat. Look, if he pulls this off with Tyler Herro and Bam and wins a championship, we can say all we want about the bubble being like a different type of gym, but like that's amazing. However, that is not a strategy for a franchise. So if you own $1 billion asset, $2 billion asset, you're not putting that money behind a 30-year-old Jimmy Butler in the hopes that he becomes the alpha of all alphas, and you put a bunch of Duncan Robinson and Tyler Herros around him, and suddenly they become like insanely confident, MAGA level delusional shooters that just don't miss anything. Like that's not a strategy. It's working. It's great. It's awesome. And I kind of hope they beat the Celtics. But I would never, if I was running a company, would never bank on that strategy. I just wouldn't.
Yeah. And I think I think so many Heat fans, they want it that they see what happens this year with this team. And, I think, and that isn't to say that like what Duncan Robinson is doing isn't like unbelievable. And like, he's like, his improvement is very real, and Adebayo's improvement is very real. Tyler Herro's rise is very real, but you're asking guys like what if this is just like a one season thing, and then defenses figure them out next season, or you really have time to sit and digest what they did this season and game plan. If this is something that they can do for multiple seasons, and then like, hey, you have something really, really good going here, and this is something you can build around going forward. But I don't know that, like, they if they win it all this year, great. But if going forward, if they don't bring in a guy like a Giannis or another star, I think it's hard to sort of be so confident that, yes, we can rely on Tyler Herro, Adebayo, and Duncan Robinson to be, like this unconscious going forward every year.
I mean, really, what are you proud of? You're proud of this fact that your state has no salary wage tax.
Oh my God, here we go.
This is unbelievable.
No, I mean, honestly, like, you're proud of the fact that your climate is semi-Caribbean. You're proud of, like, what are you proud of as a Heat fan? Are you proud of the fact that your fans don't show up until midway through the second quarter? Like,
This is
who the fuck are
unbelievable.
Heat fans? Like, what are you proud of? You're attracting guys that want a very easy off the clock lifestyle with no state taxes. Okay, good job, nice. You've really struggled as a fan, and you've earned a championship.
Oh boy.
You fucking got Shaq to come there for what? Because Shaq is smart, and he didn't want to pay wage tax. Big fucking deal. You got all of your championships are based on the tax rate of a state. So if you live in that state and you also benefit from those taxes, okay, fine. But you managed to attract Pat Riley from the Lakers, Showtime Lakers. Big fucking deal. Who cares?
Wow.
Like, what did you earn? You've earned nothing. You know what?
Oh, man.
I root for fan bases versus teams, obviously. This is no secret. But a fan base earns something by sticking with a team for decades when they get nothing in return. So as much as I can critique the Eagles front office, the Eagles fans dealt with nothing in return. Heartbreak for decades. And they stuck with it. A Heat fan has earned nothing. They deserve nothing. So
Damn.
and if they don't win a championship this year, by squirting through this bubble bullshit where every above average shooter becomes Steph Curry because Steph Curry's not there. Steph Curry would be shooting 60% from 28 foot.
That I agree with.
Fuck yeah. He'd be scoring infinite numbers of points to just win games. So enjoy Duncan Robinson in the bubble.
Wow.
When fans are there and you have a different background to the rim backboard every night, and your team now has an aging Jimmy Butler whose entire leadership strategy is beating down the egos of the people on his team. And when he has people that don't submit to that overemphasized ego and they step up to him and they're not happy with it, then what exactly do you have? You have a broken down 6'8" negative wingspan guy surrounded by a bunch of other negative wingspan guys who aren't entirely motivated because there's 20,000 people rooting against them suddenly in a gym. So enjoy the bubble. I hope you make it, and I hope you beat the Celtics. Good job. I hope you make it all the way to the finals so Kawhi Leonard can rip the heart right out of your chest. Kawhi Leonard doesn't give a fuck about Jimmy Butler and his baller-ass attitude. I was in Toronto. I was in there for the entire series. I went to Philly, all the games in Philly, and all the games in Toronto, and Kawhi Leonard doesn't give a fuck because he's a robot, and he tore Jimmy Butler's heart right out of his chest, and he tore Jimmy Butler's brain right out of his skull.
Wow. That's some imagery right there. You know what's crazy about that, Jason and Austin? This is your own damn fault.
Wow.
We took C2 Embiid notes for the first time before our podcast, for the first time, to be completely prepared for the full hour. And not once on this note sheet is the Miami Heat or Jimmy Butler mentioned. And yet, for the past 10 minutes, that's all we've been talking
this
about.
Has been a very fun podcast.
He can't leave the Heat alone.
Oh, this is great.
I don't give a shit about them. If you root for a team in a city you've never traveled to, like honestly, like if you can't afford a hotel room on South Beach, I don't give a fuck about you. Don't root for the team. I've spent many weeks working in Miami. I know Miami. They don't give a shit about the Heat. They don't give a shit about the Marlins. Look at the Marlins and their attendance. No one gives a fuck about it down there. So why are you sitting in West Virginia or upstate PA or wherever the fuck you are giving a shit about the Heat? They don't care about you. And the people in Miami don't give a shit about the Heat. If they did, they would show up on time for the fucking games.
Damn.
So what are we talking about?
Damn.
What a mercenary activity over here. I love it. The one thing about the Heat that would concern me going forward is like, okay, so this year, Jimmy Butler's, his whole mindset and his way of working, it's successful this year because you have a lot of guys on this team that are unproven or are rookies and they're young. What happens when they have agents telling them, hey, you're better than this. You're, don't take shit from him. I think this relationship can be, I guess, beat up a little bit if these guys start to realize that they're not just rookies and like low-level role players anymore. These are established guys who could be playing, for a lot of money with the Heat or elsewhere. And that's when I think Butler could have some issues with the chemistry. Right now, it's working great because these are guys that are all just trying to get food on their plates. They're brand new to this stuff. They're unproven. They're developing. What happens when they get a little bit of ego themselves and they don't like it when Jimmy's telling them how to be because they've won, because they've, they have an agent telling them like, you're better than this. That's when I think you could have a problem.
I think you're exactly right. He's right in that sweet spot of being a vet who is good enough to lead by example, for the most part, and also he's right in that Venn diagram of still being able to carry a team and say, look, I was a second round draft pick, or I was the end of the first round, and I came from nothing and I built myself. When he came to Philadelphia and when he went to Minnesota, he was around a lot of top 3 draft picks who that message didn't resonate with. But he's going to get exposed to his limitations. And he does have limitations. And look, he's under no obligation to tell us about his limitations.
Yeah.
Why would he? Why would any of us volunteer our limitations, right? We call it humility, but in sports, like, that's vulnerability is not a thing you want to show in sports. Vulnerability is the kind of thing you want to show in art and in music when you need to draw an audience in. But vulnerability is not something you want to show. But he came to these other situations where he had, in Minnesota, he had 2 number 1 draft picks. And he basically beat those guys down mentally and emotionally. And in Philadelphia, everyone knows. I mean, I don't think this is a secret, but he would come in and tell us what a hard worker he was, and then not show it in the practice facility. So you have a Ben Simmons who's not seeing someone who taught, and Ben Simmons is not someone great with a quote, doesn't tell us anything more than he has to, but works his butt off in the practice facility.
So Ben Simmons does work hard, is what you're saying?
Yeah, he works hard. I mean, he needs someone to scream in his face, shoot it. Just as any of us would go on a court, we're running 5-on-5 pickup, and we see a guy that doesn't want to shoot the ball. We're going to pick them up at the 3-point line and yell in their face, shoot it. He needs a coach that's going to yell it in his face. Right. He didn't want to hear that from Jimmy. That's probably what Jimmy was doing. As what anyone that's a big shit talker would do. I don't really blame Jimmy, but if an organization is forced to choose between a 30-year-old and a 23-year-old, you obviously choose the 23-year-old.
For sure.
Now he goes to Miami, and this is my biggest issue. Why do we know he showed up for practice at 3:30 a.m.?
Because Chris Haynes said it, and because Chris Haynes is...
Why does Chris Haynes know?
Because he told Chris Haynes.
Of course. So Jimmy Butler is out there telling people that he came to practice at 3:30 a.m. So what is that? What is that? So don't tell me you're a blue-collar lunch pail guy and then leak to the media that you're at the practice facility in the off hours. Big fucking deal. Come on. And then I've personally seen this guy crack open a case of wine in the locker room. I've seen it happen. Okay, so now it's 9:30 p.m., 9:45 p.m. after a game, and you're cracking open a case of wine for you and JJ, and you're going to tell me you're up at 3:30 a.m. at the practice facility. Well, how do I know your state of mind or your blood alcohol level at 3:30 a.m. when you showed up at the practice facility? Did you get a guy to drive you in your minivan? Oh, you love to ride around in minivans. What a man of the people. So what are you telling me? What are you telling me?
Listen, he could have been pulling a Rodman. He could have gone to the practice facility, had his little party there, and then worked at 3:30 in the morning. Who knows?
Rodman was in. We all saw The Last Dance. Rodman was flying to Vegas in between games in the finals.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Talking with Jason Blevins of the Painted Lines and 97.3 ESPN. Jason, the last question I have is: we're getting close to the draft time, where people are starting to start to think about that more. And Shams and Woj just kind of that this week they said that they're going to start that process and with like virtual meetings and whatnot. Are you hearing anything about like what they're going to be targeting in the draft and like any kind of prospects that they're looking at? All right, answers that question.
I think they have a front office to rebuild, they have a coaching staff to rebuild, and they have one of 2 contracts they need to get off of. So if they have a number of second round picks, they have a late first. They've clearly pivoted away from the moonshot young prospects. I'm looking at the comments.
He sees the message. Your DMs, your DMs are gonna be packed in a little bit.
Because from Heat fans.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're gonna kill you. They're gonna be all over you.
Good fucking job. Beat the Celtics. Marcus Smart is going to own your fucking ass. Okay? Whoa. Marcus Smart is going to dig up in your ass and own all of you. So just be prepared for an actual dog to come at you and actually dig up in your ass. Because there ain't no Marcus Smarts on the Milwaukee Bucks.
Or on the Pacers. Or the Pacers.
Or the Pacers. Marcus Smart is coming to take souls.
There we go. Brock, any questions for Jason?
None from me. I think you hit the nail on the head with what I wanted to know.
Fantastic. Jason, last question. I just did a mailbag today for the Painted Lines about one question was about Tobias and Horford. What do you see as the market being for either of them right now?
I could see a number of teams, probably 5 or 6 teams that could convince themselves that building an offense around the structure and the intellect of Al Horford makes sense for them to move from the sort of early prospect stage to the mature sort of next level where you're ready to make the playoffs. I could see 5 or 6 teams that live in that space, including Sacramento. Maybe Austin, did you post sort of a scenario with Sacramento? No, I think it was Brian actually.
Yeah.
I don't do the trade. I don't do the trade stuff.
He didn't connect. Yeah, he didn't connect the dots. But basically, what he was saying was, he was throwing out a scenario where Sacramento is a trade partner. Tobias Harris is a culture builder. He is a strong locker room guy. I've seen it. He is the kind of guy that will build your, let's say, 10th through 15th man into professionals, from prospects to professionals. So I can see him.
He'd be great in Miami with the culture.
No.
Leave Miami alone, man. Leave him alone.
No, it's not a fit for him. But he is the kind of guy that I could see franchises convincing themselves. But I think that I could see Horford moving attached with some picks. It really comes down to what is the defensive philosophy of your next head coach. Do they believe in the drop, pick, and roll coverage? Do they want to hedge? Do they want to blitz? What kind of cliff are they willing to fall off of when Embiid leaves the floor? You know, the big thing with Horford was the cliff that the Sixers defense fell off of every time he walked off the floor in 2019. That was real, but it was philosophical. So those are the kind of choices they need to make. Horford plays a totally different style of defense, and I don't think it fit with Brett Brown whatsoever. But does a new coach sort of have a more flexible philosophy where, as this position group is on the floor, we play this style, but when we have this other package of core players, we play a different style. Brett was very much by the spreadsheet. He coached by the spreadsheet, drop, pick, and roll, in 2018, 2019, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, it was switch 1 through 4, drop, pick, and roll. This past year, it was a little bit different in the pick and roll coverage on the point of attack with Ime Udoka, but they kept with that sort of drop, pick, and roll with the soft mid-range. What does that next coach believe in? What are they willing to live with? And clearly in the bubble, the soft zone in the 16 through 20-foot area it's just too easy to get used to and knock down those shots.
Like Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Right?
Yeah.
So, yes. There's clearly a balance and a reset for what you're willing to live with and die with. And Brett died with the 20-foot pull-up. The next coach is going to have to put a stamp on what they believe in. And if they are a believer in Embiid and their ability to put a backup with him, then they're going to attach picks to Horford to move on from that and get someone else that can dribble and shoot and do the other things.
Gotcha. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for coming by.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Jason Blevins. Jason Blevins of 97 through the ESPN and the Painted Lines. Yeah, Brock, what's up?
I love Jason to death. I love Jason, but I don't want to associate with the Miami Heat hate. I don't want to say it's a guilty pleasure of mine enjoying watching the Heat play, but I actually think the Heat are a really good ball team, and I believe in their culture. I buy that. And Jay Crowder had a quote on ESPN, I believe, or whoever was interviewing him the other day, where he talked about the culture and how it's real. It's not a myth that people go to Miami and maintain. There's a real culture in place there. There's a real player development in place there. There's accountability there. It's why Josh Richardson is still talking about it and longing for it 2 years after he departed there. Based on Miami's draft history in the previous 5 to 10 years, I don't think they're going to strike out with Hero. I don't think they're going to strike out with Dunk. I don't think they're going to strike out with Kendrick. I think they're going to nurture them really well. I think they always draft well. And I think here's another important factor. The more players publicly speak about this culture and this bubble, players are going to want to play in Miami. So Jason talked about the tax, right? That's a big thing. I've always said
massive.
I've always said if I played in a professional sport, I would want to play in either Texas or Miami because of that. And also, I think this is something that matters. These players are in the bubble right now, cooped up in Miami with their women, if they brought their women, their kids, whoever they may be with. They might be liking the weather.
If you're Dan House, you're just pulling anybody out of the
Dan House, you're asking without a wife and kids now. You're gonna have to find another one of them. But I think players might experience the weather and maybe the camaraderie in I don't know what they're going to experience in the bubble, but I think it could have a factor in free agent decisions. And we don't know how the salary cap will be impacted by COVID-19. So I think Miami is going to stay a pretty hot free agent destination. And I think they're going to be good for a pretty long while. I think they actually have one of the best young cores in basketball. So I wanted to let our Miami Heat fans and our viewers out there know that I don't stand with the Miami Heat hate. While I understand where Jason is coming from, that's not my stance. So I don't want to be ratioed. I don't
Brock.
I like the Miami Heat.
Brock should absolutely be exempt from the Heat hate.
Please.
And I've already been tortured enough.
Yeah.
So leave me out of it. I didn't expect him to go that hard with the Heat stuff. I didn't think that was coming, but
it was fun though.
In fact, our guy Philly Heat tweets out #Heat Twitter, so you know they're going to see this.
Oh, man.
Unite and listen to this clown, Jay Blevins, NBA, spill BS out of his mouth about the Heat. Note, he's a 76ers insider, so have compassion for his soul having to cover such an inferior franchise.
Wow.
At Krell TPL, at Landis Brock, you can do better than this idiot. And then they tag 5 Reasons Why Sports, which is like a network down there in Florida and Miami. So I guess – Brock, close your DMs. It's about to be.
I swear to God, bro. I swear to God. I look at the notes, right? We have a notes page. I said, I did not see Miami Heat. I didn't see Jimmy Butler.
Yeah,
none of that. We're here talking about what the hell's wrong with people living in Miami. I'm like, come on, bro.
I didn't say anything about the Heat. I didn't say anything about the Heat. I just brought up a question.
You brought up Jimmy Butler. That's where you went wrong.
All I said was, is there a chance he could have stayed if they bring in Ty Lue and he can convince Ben to go off ball? And then it was all It was all a slander fest from there. I am innocent in this whole thing. I don't want any of this to be out there.
Well,
but here we are. We're on a live show.
The Matrix we were dealt that card. So we only have about 10 minutes left, Austin. So let's try to jump into Houston and Los Angeles.
There you go. So
this is the talking point I wanted to hit.
So one last thing. Mike Small chimes in on Facebook.
Sure.
What do you guys think the chances are that the Sixers bring in someone with above Elton Brand, someone with credibility like Daryl Morey? I actually heard that Daryl Morey could be had for the right price. And not just with the Sixers, but like any franchise. So like he's not exactly in love with like it isn't like I guess the perfect marriage in Houston anymore. He's kind of tired of it. Is something that I've heard. And
We're already, bro.
Oh man. Oh man. Just mute your phone. But yeah, I think there's a chance that Masai and Morey could be available for the right price. But I think it's a pretty significant steep offer that any franchise would have to make from them. Now let's talk about the Rockets and the Lakers, and then Denver and the Clippers. Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird that Russell Westbrook the other night makes 3 threes, only commits 3 turnovers, and yet the Rockets are thoroughly outplayed. Like you'd think that in a game where the Rockets are losing, there's probably a pretty positive correlation between Russ chucking and missing shots from the perimeter. Like 5-6 turnovers, Rockets lose by 12. Like Russ played pretty well. Harden shot like 13% from the field.
Yep. And the problem with James Harden in this series is that he's having a really tough time adjust to the Lakers adjustments. So while he's still turning in almost a 66% true shooting percentage, he has more playoff series historically shooting under 40% from the field than he does over 45%. So this is just another series where he's struggling to hit shots, but he's shooting such a high volume. His offensive rating fell from 114 in the regular season to 107 against the Lakers. And the reason is that he's so easy to defend. And I don't mean that in the sense where you can defend him, but he's the easiest player to find on the court. He's not hard to find. And this is something Kobe Bryant talked about a couple of years ago as to why this formula can't win a championship. And this is exactly why. So the first night, the Lakers and Houston come out, and Los Angeles gets punched in the mouth. And why is that? It's because they had a center on the floor with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And the Lakers made a proper adjustment. So with another center on the floor, it's counterproductive because you have a guy, let's say JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard, in the dunker spot. Now, this makes life harder for LeBron James or Anthony Davis, any man in a 2-man game rolling or driving to the basket, because the defender on the player in the dunker spot can intercept a pass. They could step up, get in front of the drive. So it just clogs things, having a player in the dunker spot. There's less to worry about defensively. But now Los Angeles sees that a player like James Harden is going to stand at half court if he's not involved. So it's a 4-on-5 offensively. And what are we going to do in the screen? So what they do is they take a center off of the floor. They move Anthony Davis to the 5, and they put LeBron where he belongs. And it's been history, because what they do now is they'll double team James Harden aggressively and pick him up right away. And if Anthony Davis switches onto James Harden, they're okay with having that. Whereas you may have a JaVale McGee on James Harden where it's a mismatch. Anthony Davis is a very capable defender. He's one of the best in the league. So the fact that he can stick with this dude, James Harden, who's cooking up all of the time, is incredible for Los Angeles. So now you have Anthony Davis defending James Harden. You don't have to double team when Anthony Davis is defending Harden. And whereas James Harden usually makes his money in the pick and roll, he's been struggling to do that. And that's because with these doubles or Anthony Davis, he can't hit the short roll man. There's a lot of length around the perimeter for Los Angeles, so he can't hit the short roll man. And even if he does, right, it's Jeff Green and Austin Rivers setting screens. It's not Clint Capella.
Two tremendous options right there.
Exactly. That's the reason why Alex Caruso and Kyle Kuzma are holding opponents to under 25% from the field on isolations this series. Because the players that are isolating are Austin Rivers and Jeff Green. You know, so for Los Angeles, when you can get Anthony Davis to defend James Harden and switch on him, that's huge. When you have Anthony Davis defending Russell Westbrook, not even respecting the three, and Russell Westbrook can't hit it, that's huge because he can play help D now. So Los Angeles, they adjusted after that first night, and I think this is a terrible look for Houston because they look defeated, and I think this is going to conclude their what's the word I'm looking here?
Era?
Dynasty, but that's I guess their era, yeah.
You'd have to win a championship to be a dynasty.
Exactly, and they didn't even sniff one. So I think this is going to conclude Houston's their era. They have a lot of minimum contracts and
so you think they get rid of Harden?
I don't know if it's Harden, but listen, they have Eric Gordon, 31 years old, due for $16 million next season, 18 and 21, and then 19 million in 2022. To make matters worse, James Harden and Westbrook are both 31 as well, and they're going to be making 40 plus million through 2023. So I think if you're hearing rumblings that Morey may be gone and D'Antoni may be gone, you definitely have to assume that Houston's going to move on from either Russell Westbrook or James Harden. It just doesn't make sense to keep both of them under contract.
Sam Hinkie, welcome back.
Yeah, the
Sixers
ought to make a push for one of them.
Sam Hinkie comes back, trades like Harden for like 2 future firsts, and they turn into like number 1 overall picks.
So what I was going to ask though, and that's funny you bring that up because I saw people talking about the Sixers maybe inquiring for like Eric Gordon or Robert Covington with Al Horford. What I was going to ask was, does this mean that small ball is dead? Did this prove that small ball can't work?
Yes. No. Actually, I think the exact opposite.
So what do you think?
I think we're going to start seeing this era where you have a lot of guys like Dan Tice, and then you have like wings and shooters, but the small ball is just so hard to defend. But like the Celtics are as far as they are after going away from Al Horford and Kyrie because they move the ball really well. They have a bunch of athletic wings that buy into this concept of, like making extra passes, sidestepping, going around pick and rolls. And they don't have a big in the paint to clog things up. I mean, Tice lurks in the dunker spot from time to time, but he's mostly setting high screens, and then popping out. I think we're going to see a lot more of teams like trying to find these like minimal usage role playing centers that can pop out and shoot threes. Guys like Nurkic, I think, are going to be good for it. Like Jokic has a good inside game too, but he's now stepping out a little bit. I think we're going to be more towards small ball.
Yeah, that I agree with. I think that this experiment kind of proved that you need a big on the floor, but small ball can work nonetheless. What Boston is doing is essentially small ball. Daniel Tice, like you just said, a low usage center, and although he does have the height, he doesn't play that traditional back to the basket role. He's not even a stretch, I would argue. He's more so just a fifth man on the floor that does a lot of little things to make the small ball as effective as it is for Boston. So, Austin, I think that's the direction teams are going to move in. But I think going completely small, having no center, is a long ways to go. You still need a lot more athletic guys for that to happen.
Yeah. But one thing that I think LA needs to do, which I think that they will do, is like
Clippers or Lakers?
Sorry, Lakers. Yes.
Lakers. Okay.
If you notice, they're feeding AD on like a baseline side, and then he's going over back to the left shoulder every time to finish the shot. And the Rockets are sending hard help on the baseline side to sort of double team him as he shoots the ball, and it's worked a couple times. If he figures that out and it's like, hey, I'm going to fake back to the shoulder, come back to my right, and fire a pass opposite, Houston's going to be way out of position, and they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And so that's like a slight adjustment I think Houston is going to have to prepare for. But if AD just reads that pass and makes it to an open shooter, the series is done. It's cake.
Something else I saw too, which Houston should have done, but they didn't, was utilize James Harden in the post. They didn't do that. That's a simple way to keep another man involved in the half-court offense, and he's already deep enough where he doesn't have to penetrate, and he can make a pass. He's good. He's a good passer, so he can make a kick or an outlet pass from the post, but Houston hasn't done that. Yeah. They just kind of rolled over and died.
And then there was this other play I wanted to talk about. I thought was a brilliant play. It was like game 2 or game 3 where the Lakers threw it out there. But it was like they saw that the Rockets were switching on screens, and so they have AD set the high pick, so that way it's like someone way smaller on AD, and he's posting up, and then the Rockets, because they see that they have this, they have like a smaller guard trying to defend AD in the post. They're like much more aggressive in trying to help. So Davis like swings over one shoulder, and the help comes immediately. And then you have Kuzma or Morris popping out to like a little like free throw line extended area, and he's just coming right back to them, and they're wide open for jumpers. So it was like a little bit of like a little bit of he Twitter is on notice now.
No. They're leaving me out of it. 13. Oh, bro. I haven't checked my phone since the last time I showed you.
Dog, just mute the conversation. Just mute the conversation.
Man, this is exactly what I knew was going to happen. I didn't say a word that whole conversation, and I'm about to get canceled culture. Oh, man.
But
I gotta do what Giannis did. Giannis unfollowed everyone in the Bucks. I gotta unfollow everybody on Sixers Twitter now.
Oh boy,
everyone.
Philly Heat says Haslam will be at Blevin's door soon. I don't think anyone knows where Blevins lives, so good luck with that, I guess.
All right.
We're safe. We're exempt.
I hope you saw my little monologue.
We are safe.
Jason departed.
I don't want any part of this. I don't want any part of this.
Fan. I've liked the Heat. I've never said any derogatory thing about Jimmy Butler or the Heat. I stayed out of Miami's way because I knew how good they are. And everybody was talking all this shit about the Miami Heat. They're not going to do this. So Sixers fans said Jimmy Butler departed. Good luck in Miami being an 8 seed. Well, he just beat the MVP.
I never said that.
Back-to-back reigning MVP. And they're going to go to the second round, and I don't want to make any predictions because my predictions from the last round were pretty piss poor, but
hey,
I think they beat Boston.
Hey, we don't talk about that. Nothing ever happened. So we'll pray for Blevins. Now, Rock, do you have to go through an hour, or do you want to go a little longer? Talk about the Clippers.
Sure, man, I'll go longer. I'm already here.
Sure. Okay. So the Clippers and Nuggets play last night, and the Clippers just put diarrhea on the court. They were up 16 in the second quarter, and they let it slip away. And I was thinking I would be shocked if that series goes more than 5. And the Clippers just let the whole thing slip away. And I think what the Nuggets are doing well is they're switching up the looks that they give to the Clippers. And I can tell they're doing that because I'm trying to first thing when I'm watching a game, first thing I read is, okay, what's the defensive alignment? Is it a 2-3? Are they running box and 1, triangle 2, something like that? Just so I can see how they're game planning for the best players. And then I look at what they're doing one-on-one with that player when he has the ball in the hand. And I couldn't figure out what they're doing with Kawhi because it was changing every time. And then I realized, oh, that's intentional. They don't want him to get comfortable with anything. And so they were not giving him any looks. And it was kind of making his job a little hard and decision-making a little harder. But you get down the last 2 minutes of that game. It was a great game in the second half. And Paul Millsap ignites them, and Marcus Morris, he and Morris go at it. Morris is the kind of guy who lifts his chin up, and then he just doesn't actually do anything. He just sort of jaws at you, but it's what? There's nothing that's happening really in the conversation. But that got Millsap going. He has 14 points in the third quarter. But I was so surprised, and I guess pleasantly surprised and excited, if you will, by Michael Porter Jr. in that game. Yeah. I thought he showed that he has the mentality to be a superstar in this league. He talks a big game. He's we're not giving anybody else involved. And I was ready to crush him because I was like, dude, who the fuck are you? Shut up. You're a rookie. You missed the entire season. You managed to say every wrong thing at every turn.
Literally.
Every wrong thing at every turn. And then he comes out, he buries this dagger 3-ball, deep one too, with a hand in his face, contested, comes back, blocks Zubac at the rim, and then gets a rebound to clinch it. I mean, that kid came in there and proved himself last night, I thought.
Yeah, his ceiling is sky high, and it's unfortunate that he'll always be followed by hindsight throughout his career. People didn't draft him because of his back issues coming out of high school and college, so of course that's always going to follow him. But Michael Porter Jr., he has an incredibly high ceiling, and Austin, you hit the point perfectly. If you're going to talk about not getting shots, and he had 15 points early in the game after where he made this comment. If you're going to talk about not getting shots and you need the ball and you need to get in a rhythm and players need to involve you, you damn sure better back it up. And Michael Porter Jr. did exactly that. I mean, up until the point where he came to the game in fourth and actually made an impact, he had only gotten like 3 shots, I believe, or the 3 came in the fourth quarter. It's slipping from my mind. But regardless, all of the work he did to contribute in the Nuggets win came when it mattered the most in the fourth quarter. So for MPJ, his ceiling is really high. He's got the clip from deep. He's a freak in terms of his build. He can defend multiple positions. So once he puts on a little bit more muscle, he's going to be a problem. But the thing that I'm most impressed by with this series is just Kawhi Leonard in general. And I didn't really watch much of.
He's been unbelievable. He's been unbelievable.
Unbelievable, exactly. I didn't watch much of Kawhi Leonard this year because I saw him all of last year and what he did. Yeah. And I kind of blame Kawhi Leonard for my bad take last episode. I said that this series goes 7 games and Denver wins in 7. But the reason I said that probably is because of how easily Kawhi Leonard beat the Dallas Mavericks. I forgot that the Clippers even existed for a couple of days. So I was being disrespectful to Kawhi Leonard, who I'd argue is the second best player in basketball.
I think he's the best.
Maybe even the best, depending on the day.
I think Giannis is a fraud.
I was thinking LeBron at number 1, honestly.
Oh, okay.
I would take Kawhi over Giannis.
Brock's is trying to not be controversial. He doesn't want any smoke from anybody.
But for Kawhi, like, look at what he's done, man. 30 points per game in the playoffs on 52% shooting, 9 rebounds a game, 5 assists, and 2 steals. And that's his standard. It's like you see that and you don't even think twice. He scored 29 or more every game in the Dallas series. He had a 5-steal game. And in this series against Denver, he's already had 2 games with 3 steals and a game with 4.
Yeah.
So it's unbelievable to see how he contributes because he really does everywhere. He's probably the smoothest basketball player I've ever seen in terms of just getting to his spots and maintaining composure and controlling pace. I mean, I even saw him last night defensively switch on to Nikola Jokic when he had to, and he was moving around. So Kawhi Leonard is undoubtedly a legend, in my opinion. And if he wins the finals this year, this is my hot take. If he wins the finals this year, I think he is the best basketball player of my generation.
If he wins the championship this year, I think we put him in the NFL, MLB, NHL, and NBA Hall of Fames.
I don't know about all that, but I'll definitely say honestly, the thing with LeBron is like I've grown so accustomed to LeBron being so dominant and great that I almost do take him for granted. But the thing is, like, Kawhi Leonard is, I think his body of work is just as, if he wins the finals this year, I think his body of work is just as impressive as LeBron's. And the unfortunate thing is we live in a world where everything is a two-party split. You can't have Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James. You have to have one as a superior to the other. So I think if Kawhi Leonard was able to dethrone LeBron James in San Antonio as a kid, I think if he was able to take down that Golden State dynasty, and I think if Kawhi is able to also win a championship this year, which means he beats LeBron James probably, then he has to be considered for the best player in the game.
Oh, yeah. I think he's by far the best player in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you this, like last night I was watching the game and I'm thinking like there's so much Kobe in him. There's so much Jordan in him. And then I was like, but it's like an updated version of them. Like he's a sniper from neither of them are snipers. And then it hit me like it isn't that he's Jordan or Kobe 2, it's that he's Kawhi 1.
Yeah.
And that someone down the road is going to be like, we're going to be saying he's so much like Kawhi. Mm-hmm. And that's the track he's on. Like I think, and Colin Cowherd had this take a couple days ago. It was like, He's already top 5 player in NBA history. And I mean, I would say I don't know that he's top 5, but I don't think I'd have him outside of my top 15. I mean, he is unbelievable. You can't shake him. You can't rattle him. He's now become a better passer. His entire game is almost like what hole can you find there? And one last point that I had, and then I'll leave it to you to wrap things up.
Yeah.
I'm starting to notice like just how good Pat Beverly is. Jokic keeps doing this thing where he'll like swing to do like the little shoulder fake, and he'll have his back at he'll be at the free throw line. He'll shake from like a shimmy shake, comes back. Beverly is anticipating. He already has the lane cheated. He is ripping the ball right out of his hands and it's flying by him. And it's like you're waiting for Jokic's slow ass move, and then like the what's that Roadrunner guy just comes flying right next to him, and he's already gone. Like it's ridiculous, and you're like, he's so subtly good and sound that. And then he like jaws so much. He's always like talking to the game. He is one of the more impactful players in the NBA who you just don't really see that much about in like the box score.
Yeah, those endless motors, the pests, the leaders, they go unnoticed because what they do doesn't have sexy appeal for the national media. But in terms of basketball, you need those guys on your team to win. These are chemistry building guys that will go to war for you, that players want when they go to war, that really just don't make mistakes because they don't have the ball in their hand enough to make those mistakes. They're not facility. They're just dogs at the end of the day. It's the Marcus Smarts, the Patrick Beverleys, the Kendrick Nunns, the Montrezl Harrells of the world that go unnoticed, but what they do is super impactful. And my concluding point with Jamal Murray here, I still think he is an NBA superstar, soon to be. But this is the Kawhi Leonard and Los Angeles. Yeah. This what are you saying really to? Like that he'll be a superstar, soon to be what?
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I think he's going to be.
He'll be a superstar. I
think he'll be like a 1 to 2 time All-Star. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think he's just inconsistent still.
Okay, that's a fair assessment to make. I think Jamal Murray's going to be a superstar. I think he's a sniper. Historically speaking, let me say this: Jamal Murray is putting on for the light-skinned community, and there's been some light-skinned hoopers. There's been some light-skinned goats, and I think Jamal Murray has the makeup to be next in line there. Same with MPJ. But here's what's happening. Whereas versus Utah, Jamal shot almost 55% from the field on jump shots, and he was 15 of 25 on pull-up threes. He's only shooting about 32% on jump shots, and he's hit 5 of 18 pull-up field goals. Paul George is holding him to 5 of 20 so far throughout the series. And in the conference quarterfinals against Utah, he drove to the basket 103 times. In the conference semifinals against the Clippers, half of that. 54 times. He's not encouraged to drive against this defense. He's been struggling to create against the bigger and really, really good wings on Los Angeles. But I do think he will be a superstar. Nonetheless, my biggest takeaway from the series, other than Nikola Jokic's nose always being bright red for some reason.
Dude, it's ridiculous. It's so weird.
It is weird. It is.
And he has the smoker arms, too.
Yeah, I love Nikola Jokic, bro. He's for the culture. I love Nikola Jokic.
Oh, here we go. Culture. Should be Miami. Yeah. Now, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Who has the better career when all is said and done, Jokic or Murray?
Jokic.
You had to wait, but then you go, oh, yeah, Jokic. No, he's
I had to think about what you said for a minute. I didn't even know who you were talking about. I'm like, is he saying? No.
Well, Brock, any parting shots?
No parting shots today. I think Jason did most of them for me. So I'm just hoping I'm exempt from this this hellhole of Twitter later today.
Speaking of, Jason texted me, your Heat fan base is funny. And I replied, praying for you. He goes, "Oh no, what will I do? Fuck him." Oh,
Jason's got the wherewithal to kind of deal with the
He's got
hate.
the swag. You got the swag.
Yeah.
All right, Brock. What are you up to this week? What do you got going besides school?
I'm gonna try to pump out a video. I don't know if it's gonna be NBA or NFL related though.
Okay. So is it like independent of TPL, or is it gonna be a TPL video?
Well, everything I'm gonna post now is gonna go to TPL as well. Cool. Everything's gonna go to my YouTube and TPL. Cool. But I just haven't decided what my next project is yet.
You gotta get back into scouting. Gonna try to dig up some more rumors, dig up some more information. But yeah, other than that, just living the same life you are. So don't rush school by. Enjoy college, because pretty soon you'll be like me. Your hair will be all frizzy and weird. And
well, speak for yourself. The first part I agree with, but speak for yourself, man.
You're gonna be like thinking like, why am I gonna be alive for 50 more years, 60 more years?
The feat to Embiid never leaves me like optimistic when I'm done this podcast. We're talking about being washed up or getting to 23 and you start to hit a slippery slope. Like, come on. I'm 20. Like,
Brock, enjoy these young years.
I look forward to what's next.
My young son, enjoy these young years. He's Landis Brock on Twitter. You can find him in real life at your local barber, getting his getting the little razors in the side. Yeah. You can call him Brock Landis. You can call me Austin Krell. Find me on Twitter at KrellTPL. As always, thank you for tuning in to Feed to Embiid and leaving your comments. We love engaging with you all. Make sure to give us a subscription on Apple Pods. Leave us a rating or a 5-star rating and a review. And take care, everybody. Enjoy football season being back. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Feed to Embiid. Take care, everybody. Have a good Saturday.